In today's episode, we're taking a closer look at a revealing ISSA survey that sheds light on how facilities are handling the topic of menstrual care products in restrooms. The focus is about awareness, access, and the changing expectations of building occupants. From misconceptions to momentum, today's conversation will uncover why providing these essential products isn't just about convenience. It's about dignity, health, and equality in facility care. And to do this, today we're joined by John Nothdurft, who ran point on this survey project, and he's here to help us explore the data and what it tells us. John, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Always good to be on here.
Absolutely. So, for that one single person out there that doesn't know who John Nothdurft is, introduce yourself and tell us what you do at ISSA.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. Director of Government Affairs for ISSA. So been with the association since 2019 and run point on all of our legislative and regulatory efforts. So speaking with policymakers about the issues that matter most to the cleaning industry.
And a fine job you do at that. Something I would not want to do, dealing with all those politicians. But thanks for
I say I talk to politicians, so you don't have to, Jeff.
that's a good pitch right there. You're hired. John, this survey, let's talk about it. What an important project this was. I know it's published, the results are published in our publications. Tell us about this survey and the inspiration behind it. What were you hoping to see? Talk about that.
Yeah, first, I think a couple companies. One is Bob Rick for sponsoring this video component of to promote and really get the word out about this survey. I just want to thank All-in-One Insights. They're the company that we actually worked with to do the survey. So we partnered with All-in-One Insights to do this independent survey of more than 400 facility managers. So these are the people who are actually making the decision around if they put these sort of products in their facilities, including disposal, which I think is the first time I've ever seen a survey of facility managers around disposal solutions. So really kind of cool to see where this is and really what we always get asked, you know, why is this important? What are the barriers? Why aren't people, including these as a basic necessity like toilet paper, paper towels, or hand soap? And if not, what would get them to actually take the action and implement what we call a period positive bathroom?
So, before we get into a few more questions, did the survey give you the information you wanted, the data?
I think it reinforced some of the stuff that we already thought. I think there were some surprises in it, which, that's always good, right? If it completely reinforces what you were thinking going into it, I don't know if that's necessarily always a good survey. So we were able to get some good nuggets. I know as we've sent it out and started to promote it, we're getting really good feedback about what it means. I think it just helps the industry and those who are advocating to put these products in bathrooms, giving them another, understanding when they're making a pitch to their own facility, their own school, their own hospital, what their own workforce, or their own workplace, how they can talk about this and what might actually move the needle to get a facility to implement such a program.
All right. For those watching, I'll put a link to the article that has the survey results down in the video description, along with some information about our sponsor. But John, let me ask you this. The survey found that fewer than half of the facilities provide menstrual care products. Is it about awareness? Do you think awareness is a barrier of this? Why half?
Yeah, and it was actually less than half if you really dig into the numbers. And this is kind of the interesting thing, because one of our questions was, do you offer period products? And over 40%, but less than half said yes. But as you dig in, what you find is only 38% actually offer these products in bathroom for free, which is really the what we'd say is the real what you should be doing, right? It's the best practices. We have best practices on our website. Like that's what we're trying to get to a world of. So it's really only, one out of every three facilities. So that is kind of low. It's probably gone up though. And we had no baseline, right? So this is where we weren't really sure. If you would have said anywhere from 20% to maybe about 40%. I didn't think it would get over 40%, which it didn't. So that was kind of where we were looking in terms of, is this being implemented in the way where people who need it on an emergency basis can access it? So it was pretty interesting to kind of see that. And the other part of this that we looked at is by vertical. So as you would imagine, schools, higher ed and K-12 are much higher, 40 to 60%, because there's laws on the books. There's laws on the books that require this. And the lower end, you had things like retail, or even industrial. So those are kind of at the lower end, probably in the 20s. So you're seeing a big difference even by vertical who is adopting these programs. But the biggest reason that they don't is because they've never thought about it. I mean, one thing I don't think people really realize is this is actually a really big issue. So one out of three low-income women in the United States, according to the Alliance for Period Supplies, report missing work, school, or other activities because they lack period supplies. So this really is an issue. This isn't some third world country issue. This is an issue that's happening in the United States. I think you just imagine, right? Your worker misses work because they can't come. We hear it all the time in the schools, right? Girls going home from school or staying home from school, missing time getting educated because they don't have access to these products. So I think this is really important and one of the big reasons that drove us to get involved in this movement and work on this survey.
They never thought about it, number one reason, but costs and logistics have to be in the mix as well as challenges. For those that find that that's the reason, now they know about it. Now they're thinking budget and costs and how am I going to do this? What advice would you give to facility managers who want to start offering these products responsibly? What would you tell them?
It's really not as expensive as people think it is. I think that would be the biggest thing. But I was actually surprised, Jeff. I know, like, our initial thought was this price and cost is going to be the number one driver of why they don't. And knowing that it was cheap or more affordable is the number one reason why people would implement, and it wasn't. It was down the list on both those accounts. But that being said, let's say cost is your number one challenge. What we found, uh, across the board is there's a lot of different types of ways to implement these programs, right? There's very affordable ones that are dollars, dollar per employee per month, maybe, all the way up to very sort of, I would call them, a little bit more permanent structures that are on the wall, automated. It's like any product in the cleaning market, right? You can get the Rolls Royce, the greatest sort of mechanism and disposal solution, or you can get something that's a little bit more simple. And that really depends, right? If you're an airport, you might want a multi-capacity, very easy, you don't have to refill. But if it's a small sort of office building, maybe you can get away with something that's a little bit more basic, right? So it's like anything. There's every sort of option out there at a lot of different price points, but it really isn't that costly. Some people say it's not even 10% of your toilet paper budget. I'd say it's probably even lower than that in a lot of cases.
So you just blew cost out of the water. That's not a
Yeah.
big concern. Logistics, though, what about these buildings are buying toilet paper and paper towels, so it'd be that simple?
I think that is part of it. I think people, and being a male myself who's never menstruated, I can obviously understand this. I think a lot of the facility managers, the reason they haven't thought about it is they've never had to deal with this issue.
Hmm.
They've never been in a bathroom, where they haven't needed the products that they needed, right? There's usually always been hand soap, toilet paper, paper towels. So it's a unique issue that I think they just don't even understand what questions to ask. And that's kind of what we see. And that's why I found it really, interesting of being involved in this from my perspective. Just learning more about this, this natural occurring thing that happens to 50% of the population at some point in their life. So it is really interesting to hear about that. We do have best practices documents that helps you kind of ask those sort of questions. So I mean, it's really not complicated. It's like any sort of other, if you're trying to figure out, hey, how are we going to implement the best paper towel solution or the best toilet paper, multi-roll solution? It's the same sort of concepts, right? It's just a different type of product. And there's so many options out there now that it's not even like, oh, it's the one product that we have to go and it's coin operated. Like we don't even have to mess with that. There's tons of innovation in this space. And that's kudos to, I think, the rise in facilities understanding that this is necessary. And it's really a big driver. The number one reason that companies, and facilities said they would implement was actually customers. They said customer demand was the number one thing. So obviously that's going to be the driver. It wasn't even employees, and it wasn't, as we mentioned, price, right? It's not finding out, it's more affordable, and it wasn't even a government requirement. Number one was customers demanding it. So that could be a student, right, at a K-12 or higher ed, or it could be a consumer coming into your retail building. So I always say that was the one thing that I thought was really interesting. That I didn't know that that would be the biggest driver, but it makes sense, right? If it's driving business, a customer who comes in has a good experience in your bathroom. We talk about it all the time. Clean bathrooms. You need to have a clean bathroom. If you don't, it's more likely that that person's never coming back to your restaurant or store, right? You have one of those bad experiences, and I think this is the same type of concept.
I agree. A woman going into a restroom and finding that the facility is taking care of everything she needs is going to talk about it. And the customer's voice does matter. We've seen in the news recently that when people speak out and it's going to affect revenue, companies will step in and do something about it. So awareness, yeah, so awareness is a key here. Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's the number one thing. I mean,
Yeah,
just trying to educate the public, facility managers, and really, if you are an employee or a customer, talk about it, right? Say, hey,
sure.
if they implement one of these programs and you were benefiting from it, say something. If they don't, you should offer it up. Your favorite restaurant. We actually did that at ISSA's offices. We went to our office manager, said, hey, we want you to provide these products, and they ended up doing it. It was very inexpensive. They didn't even flash an eye at it. They said, sure, let's do this. This is good for our customers.
Just got to suggest it.
Yep.
All right, so how do you see menstrual equity connecting to broader conversations? We think about health, safety, inclusiveness, and facility management. Any comments there?
Think you're seeing the bathrooms just being such an important part of a facility, right? As we mentioned, just having that good experience. Once you have it's not even really about having a good experience, it's really about not having that really bad experience. I remember I was talking about bathrooms with someone, and I don't know if you have these around you, Jeff, but Buc-ee's, the really big gas station, they're really popular in the South and Texas. So there are these hundred pump gas stations, and they're known. They literally put on their billboards, cleanest bathrooms, and you go in and they're immaculate. It's the same sort of concept. And I think as you see more and more of these sort of big brands start to adopt it, and you're seeing it more in a lot of hotel brands, you're seeing it in a lot more airports, stadiums. Once you have that sort of good experience, it's just one more reason where you say, you know what, I'm going to go back to that sporting event, or I really don't mind flying through O'Hare Airport because they actually carry the products that I need. So I think you see a lot of that. The good part, I would say, one other thing that we found, which I think is really encouraging, more than 90% of those who already offer product in their bathrooms are expecting to do it. So even, with all the possible economic, uncertainty out there, more than 90% said, we're going to continue doing this for sure. And the other 10% were maybe unsure because it could be a budget issue. There could be a lot of different issues. But 90%, continuance, I think is really encouraging for the fact that if you implement one of these programs, you're going to find benefit, you're going to find out it's very affordable, and you're going to continue to do it.
I'm looking at the article right now. I'm seeing if there's anything you've missed because you've covered a lot of what the survey talks about. Any big surprises or anything you'd like to share beyond what we've already discussed?
I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's one thing that I think goes underappreciated is the disposal of these products, right? There's a big cost to people flushing down menstrual care products down toilets. So you really need to have a good disposal product. So we actually did ask a little bit on this about disposal practices. It was good to hear that more than 75% of facilities actually offer an install disposal solution, right? Which is really important, right? If you're in the stall, you need to dispose it right there. You don't want to walk around with a used product and then have to dispose of it. Otherwise, you are more likely to flush it down the toilet. The ramifications. I've talked to like the water treatment people and people on that. It's a big mess. It really is. So it was really interesting to dive into the disposal aspect of it, which I think is really encouraging to see that most facilities are doing the right thing. They're moving in the direction of install solutions or even single-use bags that are also very environmentally friendly and also help protect both the cleaning worker, which I think is very important, as well as the other people who intend to go into a facility. So that was something that I think was unique about this survey that I really haven't seen done. But um, all in all, I thought the survey was really well done. And it was really, I think, very insightful. I'm hoping we will do this again in a year or two and see some increases in uptake in this movement.
Well, that's the hope to see results come from this discussion, the survey, and all you've done. So, final comments. What's next? How can organizations, service providers take these findings from the report and then turn them into real change on the ground? What would you like to see people do, John, next?
Think, obviously, if you're a manufacturer or distributor of these products, which I think most of the distributors are now carrying these products because they're being asked for more, right? There's government regulations, there are requirements on the books. I think just understanding and looking into the data saying, okay, it'll help me sell this into this facility better. For the end user, I think it's also something to keep in mind because a lot of this is about having safe and sanitary bathroom conditions. So protecting your workers and hopefully we'll all make a big difference together. So, but I think we're moving in the right direction. We've seen over the last years. I think there's now 20 some states, both Republican and Democrat, that either require or fund these products in schools, and I think you're going to see that continue. Because this really is a nonpartisan issue. It's policy, but it's also good politics. So I'm hoping more states will take this up as well. But still, in your own world, your own facilities, we hope you will run with this as a best practice.